Who are Al-Shabaab? Al-Shabaab is the name that's commonly given to an organization that calls itself Ḥarakat al-Shabaab al-Mujahideen, which in English translates to Mujahideen Youth Movement, although often the translation is simply given as the youth. They are a group that's considered a terrorist organization with bases largely in Somalia and Kenya, as well as across the Gulf of Aden in neighbouring Yemen. They formed in 2006, although their history goes back much earlier. Al-Shabaab has its ultimate roots in 1991 when the dictator Siad Barre of Somalia fell, and a civil war arose in the country, one of the leading groups of which was the AI, which wasn't some kind of futuristic robot technology, but was instead the acronym for Al-Ittihad Al-Islami, a radical Islamist faction whose core members were trained in the Middle East by none other than Osama bin Laden, among others. Around 2000, they merged together with another faction, a group called the ICU, which is short for the Islamic Courts Union, and together they continued to fight the Islamist cause in Somalia during its civil war. They soon emerged as the youth movement of the ICU, an armed military wing, and in 2006 they were able to take over the capital of Mogadishu. This caused a problem for the neighbouring country of Ethiopia, who in 2006 in December invaded Somalia and ousted the Islamists from the capital. During this period, it is really the case that Al-Shabaab as we know it was formed, and they became the real nationalist resistance against the Ethiopian invaders, who also happened to come from a majority Christian country, and so in a form of Islamism and nationalism they posed a front against the Ethiopian soldiers despite having been driven from the capital, and their group increased in size as most of the other members of the ICU fled to neighbouring countries. In 2008, the United States designated the group a terrorist organization, and in 2011 they were actually working together with Somali pirates in terms of racketeering and extortion, which also tells us how they were making their money. During this time, Al-Shabaab continued with terrorist activity as well as with taking towns on the ground and fighting against the transitional government in Somalia. In 2011, they even captured 2 Spanish aid workers working for Médecins Sans Frontières, and this prompted the Kenyan government to become involved, although it's likely that the Kenyans were planning an invasion of southern Somalia earlier on in any case. This resulted in Operation Linda Nchi, in which Kenyan troops entered southern Somalia, greatly weakening Al-Shabaab, which was particularly strong in the south of the country. Many Al-Shabaab fighters also surrendered to Kenyan troops, and this had a lasting effect on the region, although it did not destroy the organization as a whole. Because of the ongoing conflict in the country and lack of a central stable government, millions of people in Somalia rely on food aid, and this is something that Al-Shabaab has outright banned in areas under its control, frequently attacking, kidnapping, ransoming and killing aid workers that come into its territory. In 2012, the group released a 15-minute video in which they declared their allegiance to Ayman al-Zawahiri, the leader of Al-Qaeda, and they are known to have had links both with Al-Qaeda in the Middle East as well as in North Africa, and indeed with Boko Haram, another group that has also declared its allegiance to Al-Qaeda. In 2015, with the rise of the Islamic State in Iraq and the Levant, they even made a video, that is ISIS made a video prompting the members of Al-Shabaab to join their organization to switch their allegiance, but they made a response video which told its members and indeed the leadership in Iraq that they would be sticking with Al-Qaeda and that they would not be switching their allegiance over. The group has also carried out several terror attacks both in Somalia and in some of the neighbouring countries, both Kenya and Uganda having sent soldiers to fight against Islamist movements in Somalia in the past. The first of these was in 2010 in Uganda, followed by attacks in 2013, 2014 and 2015 in Kenya, followed by further attacks in 2017 in the capital of Somalia, Mogadishu, more attacks in 2019 in both Kenya and Somalia. The worst of these attacks was in 2017 when truck bombings in Mogadishu, the capital of Somalia, killed over 500 people. Al-Shabaab follows a Wahhabi interpretation of Islam, which is very different to the Sufi tradition followed by most Somalis. They also use music and indeed social social media and the radio, where they have broadcasts in Somali, English and Arabic to focus in on young people. And they often use child soldiers as part of their forces, but in the last decade have also targeted young girls and women to work as suicide bombers. They continue to fight against AMISOM, that is the African Union mission to Somalia, and in 2019, when they were supposed to pull out, AMISOM decided to stay until 2021, as the crisis with COVID has led Islamist groups such as Al-Shabaab in Somalia to once again be a danger that will continue to haunt the country in the future.